Hey everybody, this is Adam Brown and this is Consumer Packaged. This episode with Wayne Wu, General Partner at VMG Partners, is going to be a good one. If you don't know who he is, you have not been in the industry long because literally everybody knows Wayne. Not just from his iconic pants that he wears at trade shows or from his co-hosting duties on the awesome Unfinished Biz podcast, but really from his legend level networking and being an all-around good dude. He is everywhere and connected to everything. Wayne offers tremendous depth and understanding of this business, and we can all learn a ton from him. This is precisely why I tried to get him on my podcast right away, and in awesome human fashion, he accepted, no questions asked. I'm very grateful for that, Wayne. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome, Wayne. It's good to have you.
Well, that's very kind. Thanks for having me on your show.
I was joking. I saw that you were on with Mark Samuel yesterday. So let's start. What do you think about Mark Samuel?
I love his hustle. You know, one of the things we talked about were the characteristics of successful entrepreneurs. And one of the most common traits are, hustle, perseverance, tenacity. And he has all of those characteristics and paired with a really good heart. And I think that's really Mark in a nutshell. He lives not too far from me, and he and I run into each other every now and then. I've always just admired his passion.
I love that. And you did not pay him to say that. He did not pay you to say that. So he'll appreciate that. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Mark. I always want a guest to sort of explain what their company does. And I'm going to have you say that. Mark asked you that question yesterday, and I really felt the depth of your answer. So I'm going to have you do that again, and we'll probably get into some follow-up questions. So in your own words, what does VMG Partners actually do?
Yeah, we partner with entrepreneurs and companies to help build not only iconic brands, but great business models. And, our approach, we think, is really different. We're not deal hunters. And I think that's one of my pet peeves about the investment industry as a whole is just how many folks here are just constantly deal hunting. And we focus more on an ecosystem-driven approach. And what we mean by that is we want to support all entrepreneurs within consumer. We want to help support the larger CPG organizations that oftentimes acquire many of these brands and help them be successful with those companies, and then support retailers in helping these brands continue to grow within their platforms, knowing that it's very different than large conventional CPG brands that may be selling in their stores as well. And through that effort, the pie grows bigger and things will work out just fine for VMG. So we're not worried about that. The more important part is how do we improve what consumers put in and on their bodies? And those three constituencies that I mentioned are really critical in order to help bring healthier products to the masses.
Yes. So your game, because that was very well articulated today and yesterday. And what stood out to me yesterday, being a listener, is that it's very much in line with my ethos, right? Like there's plenty of social media agencies, there's plenty of financial firms at all different stages, from early stage to more opportunistic later stages and everything in between. And there are people that are just out to be sharks and make money, and there are social media agencies out to just make money and live on it, and it doesn't matter, and it's vertical agnostic. But I think your company we've chosen this arena, better for you CPG and beverage, because as a general stereotype in a positive way and a macro sort of thesis is that these are people that are making products that are better for you, that are going to help you live a better life. If you're in this ecosystem like we are, there's just good homies, male and female, in this category. Like everyone wants everyone to win. You want everyone to grow. If the tide rises, everyone is successful. It's very different. I'm a New Yorker, and I've worked in apparel and even some beauty, and there's less of that. I'm not saying there's not good people everywhere, but there's more cutthroatedness, if that's an actual term. And I find that in this space, there's much less of it, and people want to see each other win. And what really resonates about VMG to me is the really getting in there and actually wanting the business to win, not just because you wrote a check, but because of the benefit it's going to have to the community, and just taking a more active approach than writing your name on a check. I see it. I've worked with brands in your portfolio. and I can feel it. And I think that is what has allowed you to rise to the top. Now, specifically with Wayne Wu, who is Wayne Wu, and how would you summarize what makes you unique?
I think a big part of it is just, I grew up as a first generation born in the U.S. My parents have met each other when they were young kids in Hong Kong, and without a tremendous amount of means. I'm only two generations separated from my great grandma on my dad's side, who was an opium addict, illiterate rice peasant farmer, and I think that spirit of not having anything and having to be scrappy has permeated through multi generations of the Wu family. My dad was the first college graduate on either side of the family, and we were blessed enough to as a family moved to the United States in the late 70s, where I was born in Houston, Texas. And so I've always I've never taken anything for granted. I grew up taught, and part of me is my persistence and tenacity. And I think that's a big part of who I am, is trying to not take any day for granted, not take anything for granted, and know that, just to really appreciate what I have each and every day.
I love that. I don't know. I certainly didn't know that about you prior to this. So I'm so glad I asked it. But as you're saying it, and I'm like bobbleheading a little bit, I'm like, of course that's your story, but meaning something close to that story, not the actual specifics, but you can just feel your hustle and grit, and you can feel your gratitude and your energy. And those usually come from someplace, right? And so that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you sharing that. So pivoting back on the business side, what is the Velocity Snack Brands platform that you more recently launched? How does that work?
Yeah, so most folks have gotten to know VMG through our growth equity focus. So some of the things I described in terms of helping partner with, helping to build not only iconic brands but great business models, and we've done that generally over the years with a single brand, single entrepreneur, where we help drive that that company, help drive that company forward in that regard. What we've observed over time is there are a number of other brands and companies who are great brands, and for one reason or another, it may make sense for those brands to be part of more of a brand family than continue to just drive forward into perpetuity as a standalone brand. And so one of the first areas that we identified that we think a brand family concept could really make a lot of sense is the better for you snacking space. And that's why we decided to launch Velocity Snack Brands, and started that through acquiring Pop Chips. I think almost everybody in the market knows Pop Chips as this healthier, salty snack brand. And it's a really, truly an iconic brand that we think is a great start to building a platform that has salty snacks, sweets, and nutritional bars, and be able to leverage a single team, a really first-class data-driven team, to be able to manage multiple brands into one larger organization together. It's not a departure away from our growth equity focus. That is, think about it this way, as it's an innovation for VMG, almost like a product line extension, to use sort of CPG terms to it. But we think this is something that can be very helpful to the ecosystem as a whole, that's very differentiated.
I love it. So Pop Chips is one of the brands that we work with, and we were originally introduced to them by Verlinvest maybe like 4 years ago. And I can see the stark difference. Like, since we've worked with them, we've had 4 or 5 different marketing personas that have left, and fortunately have taken us with them to their new brands, which has been great for us, because I think we do good work with them. But when this started, I can feel the energy to who you brought in to run it. His energy, I can feel, the new employees that they're hiring and the spotlights. Like, there's just a different vibe and community. And I love that centralized ecosystem that can bring some of those philosophies, especially with, you guys behind them into that space, and then consolidate that sort of team thinking and approach and economies of scale to the other brands. Super, super smart. And I look forward to it unfolding. Hoping I get to meet some of those other brands along the way. But I think it's palpable. I can feel it. So that's you guys are off to a really good start, at least from an outsider's point of view.
Thanks. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. You should be. All right. So in looking at deals at every stage of a brand's life cycle, what would you say stands out as the biggest reason for success or failure?
It really comes down to something very basic in that, do consumers try it, buy it again, and tell their friends about it? And too many brands or companies have tried to force the action in that regard of just trying to push, almost like trying to push their brands onto consumers, regardless of whether the consumer wants to buy their product or not. And the brands that are truly sustainable and become iconic brands and thus great business models are ones where the flow happens very naturally. Consumers want to try it. It's an awesome product and brand that resonates with them. They buy it again. And without prompting, they tell all of their friends about the brand too. And then that flywheel just keeps replicating itself over and over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to believe in the story. I always say everyone thinks their baby's the cutest. Although I've been learning recently, some don't. Some are just like, keto's hot, so I made a keto product and that's what I'm doing. But generally speaking, everyone thinks their baby's the cutest, but it's this serendipity of you have to have the grit and determination and the hustle to get it into people's hands. And then proof is in the pudding, right? They will try the product. If the label is clean and the product tastes good, then you have your best marketing tool ever, because they'll tell other people.
And generally, they need to really believe in it. Yeah. I think looking back at the last 15 years, you certainly have more contrived brands today than there were in the earlier years of VMG, where I really believe that the brands that start with a real authentic reason, and generally in the better for you food and bev space, it's oftentimes been they're solving for their own consumer need. Where there's something like a Justin Gold of Justin's, who is an avid outdoor enthusiast that didn't really like the more like chemically artificial energy gels. So he solved his own consumer need by developing a nut butter based squeeze pack that was a great alternative. And he was really solving that for himself. He wanted to share that dream through the farmers markets, and then it continued to take off from there. But he didn't package it up as like a, he didn't have an exit strategy. He didn't start Justin's because he wanted to create a massive business for exit. He was just simply trying to solve for a consumer need that he had, that he wanted to address. And I think that genuine nature ends up leading to success when you pair that with tenacity, grit, and perseverance.
Totally. And I always say you can't fake that, right? You can't later on in a branding exercise make that happen. It has to be real, and you have to be solving for the need. And sometimes it just comes out of the pores of the brand. Justin's obviously being a great example of that. So I guess on that same thread, is there a brand that stands out that just really crushed it and outperformed anyone's expectations that you come along? Either one that you guys sort of invested in and then it crushed, or maybe one that you didn't and you're like, wow, like I can't believe how those guys executed on whatever it might be, like in and around this space. Anyone that comes to mind?
I mean, it happens all the time, and I'm purposefully picking something outside of our portfolio because we love all of the brands that we've had the good fortune of partnering with. So I'll just pick some brands outside. I think there's some very recent ones that as we look through just even certain ones that have been acquired in the midst of COVID. You look at a Vital Proteins and what Kurt, the founder there, built. Extremely passionate about consumer health, the role of collagen, and he built a real truly lifestyle brand. You have Brandon that, I think the news yesterday of Unilever acquiring Liquid IV, taking, solving for hydration. There's certainly a lot going on in terms of low sugar, but his product is certainly not low sugar, but he's done a great job of explaining what the role of sugar is to high performance athletes, and seeing how Liquid IV has really taken the market by storm has been really, really impressive. So that's what's great about this space, Adam, is there's always something new and interesting that's helping improve what consumers put in and on their bodies, and the passion that the founders like Kurt or Brandon represent. And their brands really embody that passion that they have as individuals.
Yeah, I mean, talk about two great examples. Those are ones that I just, since I've been in and around this space, probably since like 2013, 14, I just feel like I come across them at every turn. They're like running the marathon. They're passing the mile markers. I'm like, they're running the race right. They're doing it right. Their mission is right. They're doing influencers right. They're on emerging platforms. They have a true, authentic story. And then when I wake up and I see that news release, I'm like, of course, that's exactly what happened. So sometimes they just really stand out. And there's a lot of examples. You just mentioned a couple of recent ones, and there's others that we could name even in the last 12 months. Is there any one big miss that you guys at VMG are like, man, did we miss on that one? Is there anyone that comes to mind?
One of the ones I think about all the time, that I think is just a truly amazing brand is Kodiak Cakes. Joel Clark's a really good friend. Admire what, the platform they've built in terms of just the baking and baking related categories. And, we've always admired what he's built, and we sure wish that we had the chance to partner with him. And not only because it's a great brand, but Joel as a human being, even better human being. And the combination of that ethos really lines up well with what we stand for at VMG. And but more importantly, like I said, it's an ecosystem-driven approach. So it's not one where it's regret, but it's really around, we're just huge fans and so proud and excited for what Kodiak Cakes has become under his leadership.
And I bet if I looked around, I'd probably see you throwing some love to them. And I feel like I remember when Vital Proteins news was out, I feel like I saw you post something and give them love. I could be making that up, but I feel like you give good love to people outside of your portfolio, brands that you didn't work with. And I think that goes back to in my opinion, what makes Wayne Wu different. So I'm sure they appreciate that. I definitely see it.
I love to see great people have success, and entrepreneurs that have their blood, sweat, and tears have gone into their businesses, and it lived up to all of their dreams and maybe even more. And there's nothing more exciting than seeing that. And they should get a shout out. They deserve it. And it just brings a smile to my face.
100%, man. 100%. What is your least and or favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is just the amazing opportunity to get to speak to so many interesting people. And I love the dynamic nature of it, and getting to meet new people almost every single day that are trying to improve what consumers are putting in and on their bodies, and the passion that they have, and anything we can do from a VMG perspective to just help them out along the way, regardless of whether we invest in them or not, just brings us tremendous joy.
How about least favorite?
I wish we could invest in all of them, because there's so many, that they, it's not just the capital, but, we wish we could more even take it to even a whole nother level in terms of being able to help support them, not only through recommendations and advice, but our capital. But that's just not realistic or feasible. But I sure wish we could, because hopefully we, our goal is to try to help every entrepreneur achieve their dreams. And I wish we could feasibly fund all of it, but that's probably just not realistic.
Right. That's a good answer, because I would imagine there's probably some stars that you come across that you pass on, given just the fundamentals of your fund and where you're at, and how long you are in a category, or maybe even like you already have a certain area locked up, but you also think they're a good brand. Probably miss out on some really good opportunities and some really good humans that you have to pass on, which is probably a negative thing. That's a good one. What is a CPG or beverage brand that you are not affiliated with it in any capacity that you are like consuming and really digging right now?
I mean, we crush tons of Siete. I have a bag of it here. Shout out to Miguel and Veronica and their family that started this business. And we're not investors in the business, but I've always been a fan. Even before they named their company Siete, it was named Must Be Nutty Foods. And when they were just coming out of the incubator in Austin, it's been great to watch their success. And our family, we're obsessed with their with their products.
Right. Same. And I like everything they do from a marketing and storytelling, long form video point of view. I'm a fan even from like the social media side. They're not a client of ours, and I'm just like, man, they have it. And again, you can't fake that. You can't.
I love their video where they showed that Target aisle of just Siete. They do not only great consumer video work, but also trade driven video as well.
So good.
They're real leaders in that for sure.
So good. Big shout out to them. And I find very, very often when I ask that question, either on this or privately, they're on the top of the list for a lot of people. So they're doing something right. On that same thread, actually, growing up, you're born in Houston, so Texas.
Yeah.
What's a CPG brand that you ate as a kid that now that you're the new and improved Wayne Wu in the better for you space, that you cannot believe that you ate it so much as a kid, and would never be a part of your diet anymore?
Oh my gosh, the list is long. I drank so many Cokes, like not Diet Coke, but like the red can. I would drink so much of that. I've always had a weakness for Oreo cookies. I ate a boatload of those. And I believe in moderation. There's nothing wrong with eating Oreos or drinking a can of soda every now and then. There's nothing wrong with it. I believe in moderation, not, there shouldn't be anything absolute. But certainly as a kid, I probably overindulged a bit. I also loved, Cocoa Krispies. Cocoa Krispies were a real weakness. And I look forward to, I don't know if you ever had Cocoa Krispies, but when it melts, it makes chocolate milk.
Yes.
So being able to drink the milk at the end with that kind of chocolatey taste, it was something I look forward to a lot. So I could go on and on. Again, these are all great brands, and people should feel fine eating them in moderation. But I probably didn't do a great job of moderating that when I was a kid.
Right. Well, that's the problem, right? You just eat it and nonstop, and that's just what was there, and it's what you were given, and it's addictive. You want more of it.
I also crushed like a half gallon of Bluebell cookies and cream ice cream in like one sitting.
Nice.
Looking back, that's disgusting.
That's terrible.
Again, there's nothing wrong with ice cream in moderation, but I don't think anybody should be eating a half gallon of ice cream in one sitting.
For sure. So, that's never advised.
That's right.
It's never advised, no matter how old you are or what decade we're living in. That is ill-advised. So take that note. So I know you live in the Bay Area now, and I think that you're sort of passionate about it, or you really dig that area. But if you were not living there, where would you live?
I'd probably, I got a lot of love for Texas. So, and they're certainly both very different places. But I would, I really have a lot of heart for where I grew up. But also I love San Diego as well. So another California location, the weather, they use the least amount of climate control of any place in the country. It's always kind of plus or minus, 70, 80 degrees. So they live a great life down there from a weather perspective. But, it's hard for me to imagine, living outside of California or Texas in my life. But part of that's just pure bias, Adam, in that it's the only two, they happen to be the only two places that I've ever lived. So there's a lot of great places in the country and around the world, but they just happen to be the places where I've spent any time in my life.
Right. Both good options. I spent only a little bit of time in Texas. I spent a lot of time in California. Obviously from a tax point of view, it'd be great to live in Texas for both of us. But I think it's in line with your brand. Again, like I know you and we've been connected on LinkedIn. I think we had 982 mutual connections on LinkedIn. That is by far the most I've had with anybody, which is crazy. But we've never spoken, right? And we're speaking now. And I'm just saying from this interview, it makes sense that you dug both places you lived. Like, I think you probably get the most out of your life wherever you're going to be from your backstory and just from your energy. So, if you lived in Iowa for a little bit, that would be in your top 3 probably too. So you can make a good experience probably anywhere is kind of what I'm saying. What is the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
It's a good question. I think it all still comes back to, just it's around perseverance. And I know that theme. I know I say that quite a bit, but even from a young, it's not even like business advice. I think it's been just life advice, and that's through my parents. It's through like sports coaches growing up. It's been mentors from a business perspective of just really sticking with things and trying to make your own luck along the way, and know that rarely in life is anything truly given to a person. And I've just really focused on that my entire life. I try to convey that to my children as well. And I apologize, keep bringing up that same theme, but I think it's one that's been really impactful in my life from a variety of different folks who I admire from a very early age through today.
I love it. And that tees up my next question. I'm sitting with one of your kids, they're 40 years old, and I say, the most important lesson your father taught you was, fill in the blank.
That details matter. I say that all the time to my kids. And, I think, I think for them, a lot of times it's just trying to, get it done, or whatever that chore is around the house, or, practicing a sport or doing their homework. And one of the things that I really try to convey is that the little details matter, and to not try to take any shortcuts. And, whether that's a homework assignment, last night we were talking about, prime factors related to math for my 10-year-old son. And he just wanted to get to the right answer and didn't focus on the process of it. And we had a lot of discussion around almost like the right answer didn't matter. It's around the process of how you get there, and the details of that really matter. And, I think that's an important part of life is to not let it drift by, to not take the shortcuts, and to really understand how things work and take pride in everything that, a person does each and every day, including the little details, because all those little details add up, and it can be very meaningful at the end of the day on what a person ends up accomplishing.
If those stick with them, they'll be in good shape, because those are spot on. And it's funny.
They don't want to hear from their dad though. So
no.
I'm not sure it resonates, but it's maybe by the time they're 40, it'll resonate.
It definitely doesn't. And it's probably about 40 when it will resonate. And hopefully we're all here and we're all around to see that, because those are good lessons. And, I'm sure if I'm your coworker, if I'm one of your investment brands, if I'm your child and I just heard that message, it's just spot on. I'm saying it as not the dad or the coworker or the investor. Those are just the right ways to do things. They matter in work. They matter in life. They matter in everything that you do. And I think, finally in the last like 6 or 7 years, personal brand, LinkedIn brand, a lot of this is really, you can't fake it. I remember my old basketball coach in high school would say, you can't teach tall. Tall's tall. If you have a good personal brand and ethos, and I think it comes from those foundational type things, you have to get them somewhere. Maybe you got them from your dad. Maybe you got them from a coach. Maybe you just got them on your own from like taking some bruises, but you need those foundational understanding of things in order to be successful, in my opinion, not only during good times like we just had for the last decade, but during wartime general times. If you're a leader or a member of a team, that foundational type stuff, the details matter, the work and the effort matter. It's everything. That's a really good one. I really appreciate you sharing that. One other thing from going way back to when you were a kid, what was the first way that you ever made money? Not a LinkedIn job, but like what was the first way you made money?
So my first job, I worked for my godmother, and she was a pharmacist and started her own business doing essentially home care. So once a patient was discharged from the hospital, but they were still on like various pain meds or other, related to pain control, my job would be to help, deliver, whatever she wanted me to deliver for. So I was like a delivery person. So I would, I drive around. Houston's pretty spread out. So my job would be to drive around as a delivery person. And that was a theme of a number of my first jobs. I was also in corporate catering. And I remember, there's a lot of energy businesses in Houston, and they would, they'd have their big corporate luncheons. And my job would be like to set up all the Schaefers and the little, all their food, come back and pick it up. And I always admired, what those folks were doing. And I try to ask them some questions about, what they do for a living. And I think part of that, part of those experiences, certainly inspired, my desire to be in the quote unquote business world was part of being in the delivery side of things.
They're important. And I talk about as my kids, are getting towards their teens and talking about jobs. I know a lot of my friends are like, yeah, they just got to make their own money so they can buy their own stuff. And I'm like, that's part of it. But I also just think whenever you've been in the other side shoes, whether it's retail, driving a car around, home care, catering, being a caddy, whatever, yeah, you'll always remember the feeling of being on that side. You'll always be empathetic to that person. And I think that's another building block for people. I studied sociology at Michigan. I stumbled into it. I just thought, what was an easy major to get an A? But it was like this best thing I ever did because it helped me understand people at such a high level. And so all the jobs, all those little jobs, it's actually, that's a question I ask on my interview. Whenever I interview people to work for me, what's the first way you made money? I love retail. I love gritty. I love like concession stand. I just like that they did that early and they had to learn the fundamentals of that. Because I just think it makes a better human. So you've had those are some interesting ones.
Yeah, I like that. I was a ballet parker too. I really enjoyed that.
You like cars, huh?
I'm not a car guy, but it was fun. I loved, playing sports. I found that people liked valet parkers who ran. So I would run as fast as I could to their cars so I could bring it back, in a relatively, fast but safe fashion. And I found that, like many things, their tip corresponded with hustle. The more I hustled, the more they tipped. And I really enjoyed the cash nature of the tipping too. Same. So, and again, you got to meet a lot of different people because it's not like even, maybe like at a restaurant where you're only meeting a few tables each night. Valet parking, you're meeting tons of different people each night. And I'd also start talking about what they did, for a living, make some small talk. And I learned a lot, just these conversations over time of whether it was corporate catering or valet parking. And you're 100% right. I have tremendous empathy and respect for, for folks, who are doing those same jobs and having been in their shoes.
It's good stuff, man. We're like separated brothers here. I'm so glad we got this opportunity. So what's coming up in the next handful of months for you guys? Anything you want to plug? I know you have your podcast. I know you have this emerging platform. Anything you want to sort of mention, give you some airtime?
No, I mean, like you said at the beginning, I hope others, check out Unfinished Biz, our podcast, and I hope anybody who listens to this helps take more of an ecosystem-driven approach too, where they take this and start helping try to support a variety of folks without any short-term quid pro quo. And I hope because I think the more people, especially during these challenging times, if people just focus on trying to spend more time helping others and be a bit more empathetic, I think we're going to go a long ways as humanity and as a nation.
I totally agree, man. Well, I'm so glad we got this opportunity. Like I said, you accepted, no questions asked. I want to make sure that doesn't mean 1,000 people hit you up tomorrow. And I noticed you were smart. You put your email on LinkedIn and said, don't hit me with these direct messages. I get so many. You must get 1,000x what I get. And I'm sure you want to be respectful of people when they reach out to you. So you'd like to get back to them. It's just hard when there's so much. So anyway, you heard it here. Wayne Wu, again, if you're in this space, you don't know him. I don't even know what to say. Like, you won't get the chance at expos in the coming future to see his pants, but look it up. You'll see it. Ask around. People know him. This is it's a big space, but a very small space. He's a good guy to know, even if it's just through learning about his story, learning about what he does. Keep an eye out on VMG. Keep an eye out on Velocity. There's a lot you can learn from what they're doing. And again, it's a really sort of nice incestuous industry. So reach out to people that are in their portfolio that you might know through 1 or 2 degrees separation. I'm sure they're going to say great things about VMG and Wayne. I'm sure if you have an amazing brand that has real potential, they're going to take a look at it at some point, and it's a great conversation to have. But nonetheless, you can really learn from some of the leaders in this space. I think Wayne is one of them. So this was a great opportunity to just get in his mind, even for like 40 minutes. And I hope you enjoyed it. So that's it for this episode. Thanks so much, Wayne.
Hey, thanks, Em. I really appreciate it. That was a lot of fun.
No doubt.